Hello and welcome, Katarina Obranovič. You recently arrived in Australia from Europe. How are you liking the Australian summer?
I'm really enjoying it. It's a bit weird with, Christmas season and New Year, and we're used to boots and scarves and gloves and everything, and here you're just in shorts and flip-flops, thongs. Apparently it's allowed to say that.
Yeah.
But I'm just, enjoying it and, taking everything in and doing all the bureaucracy stuff at the moment with banking account and, all that stuff. But,
Very nice. And what other kinds of things have you been doing in Australia?
I've been traveling, I visited last year for the first time and we traveled a little bit, and also now I'm just sort of looking at towns around and the countryside and the wineries and these kind of things. I'm going to Sydney later on in January, so then my proper life starts, but now it's still a holiday mood.
That's good. You're originally from Slovenia. What area are you from?
I'm from Novo Mesto, which is the region of Dolenska, the southeastern part of Slovenia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was born there.
And what's it like there?
It's really pretty. It's very green, like most of Slovenia. It's my parents and I lived in a house close to which is like a little town with a lot of health resorts around. So our house was about 500 meters from the hotel. So we had a lot of foreigners and people from Europe and all around the world coming. And it was nice to meet everyone. My mom had a hairdresser salon at home. So we met all these people, and that was a great experience working there through my primary and high school. And my parents then moved to Ljubljana, so they live in the capital now. But Novo Mesto or Marieška Toplica will always be my hometown, and it's very pretty. You should
visit. Up to date, you've had an interesting variety of jobs. So you've done hairdressing, a sales assistant, preparing news and advertising at Radio 1 in Slovenia. You've done public opinion and communications researcher, event organizer, entrepreneur, youth representative, activist in the New Slovenian Political Party, and most recent position was as an intern at the European Parliament in Brussels. What motivates you to seek out all these different...
There were quite a few, weren't there?
Yeah, it's a lot.
I don't know. I had a really good, parents, and they always said you have to be ready for anything that life throws at you. And my mom always inspired me, and she was always saying that you got to be diverse in today's world and everything. So, whatever I did was somehow related to political science or politics, what I'm generally interested in. And it's just, being diverse, I suppose, and just taking on different stuff.
Yeah. Can you please tell me something about your internship at the European Parliament in Brussels?
Well, I got this opportunity just after I graduated. I was working for Jacqueline Foster. She was a British Conservative member of the European Parliament. And she offered me work. So I was working for her for nearly a year. It was really interesting. If you're studying politics in Europe, your sort of ultimate goal is to work in one of the European Union institutions.
Okay.
So, that was very... very good.
And what did your job entail?
It was basically office work, Parliament assistant office work.
Mm-hmm.
And I was following, besides all the admin stuff, diaries and things like this, and organizing meetings and events and, visitor groups coming over. I was following both committees that my MEP was a member of. So it was the Committee on Environment, Public Health and Food Safety, and the Committee on Transport and Tourism. When I was 18, I obtained the driving license for a truck. So I was driving around Europe. So, coming into Committee on Transport was very interesting for me to see how everything works in theory. So, yeah, things like this. It was very, very eventful.
That's good. What was the pressure and stress and your deadlines on your job? How did you find that?
I mean, I had a really great work colleague. So we kind of divided work with that. There's always deadlines when a certain report has to be handed in or certain amendments have to be assigned to whatever report there is on. And, it is quite stressful. It can be stressful. But it's also fun, too. Yeah.
It's good. You've chosen to work and study outside of Slovenia. Why did you choose this?
I think when I finished my high school, I was attending high school in Žilinja, which was a private high school close to the capital. There I was used to, it was a very different kind of high school. Like, teachers really cared. They didn't just teach, they also wanted students to actually learn. And it was just sort of something that I really wanted to do. And when I was working for a Slovenian-Swiss association, I met a lot of diplomats and people from all over the world, and I heard many opinions. And it's just, if you live in a country, you live in a little bubble, I like to say. And it's especially important for young people to go out there and see what world has to offer. And it's very interesting, and it's good also for your own home country when you come back eventually and bring some new viewpoints.
Okay. So you are planning in the end to return to Slovenia?
I would like to think so. It's not the right time now.
Yeah.
Yet. But maybe someday.
Okay. You've completed your Bachelor of Science with honours from the University of Birmingham in the UK. And in March you'll be starting a Master's degree in Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Sydney. Why did you choose Australia and this course, and why in Sydney?
Slovenia is in a region that is like full of conflicts, the Western Balkans and that, like, those areas. It's not very stable, I would say. So Australia has always been sort of a role model for many countries, even some they don't want to admit it, but Australia is very good with its migration policy, with peacekeeping operations, with like international security things. So I really couldn't think of any better place to study this. And I did apply. Well, I applied to 4 different universities here with sort of different programs, but they're all about international security, because that's what I eventually want to do. And I was accepted to all 4, and then I was choosing in the end between Melbourne one and Sydney, and in the end I chose Sydney. I think it will be great. I'm really excited.
It's always been fascinating to talk to someone from Slovenia and learn how many languages they know. So how many do you speak?
I only speak a few. I know some are a lot more for languages. I suppose I should actually learn some more, but obviously Slovenian is my mother tongue, and then German, Serbo-Croatian. I do a bit of Spanish here and there, and I'm learning Russian at the moment, so don't try that yet. It's just, for a country like Slovenia, I think it's very important that people know foreign languages, because obviously you have to communicate with the rest of the world, and but also for nations like America or Britain or even Australia here, it's for doing business and things like this. It's very nice if I'm not saying you have to be fluent in a language, but just to know a few phrases or just something that you actually show interest in other countries. I think bigger nations whose first language is English can be a little bit ignorant in this sense.
Yeah. Okay. And in your work, in your courses, in your studies, have the languages helped? Have you used them at all?
I mean, when I was working for this Swiss association, obviously everything was in German. And when I was attending their conferences and things like this, and ever since I left Slovenia for my studies in the UK and then work in Parliament and now here, my everyday life really runs in English. So I only speak Slovenian when I Skype with my parents, which is quite often. And, if I meet some Slovenians, because they're like, we're everywhere, I was really surprised. Like, wherever you go, you have a little club.
Okay,
so it's good. Yeah, it's kind of nice.
You were born and raised in Slovenia. Are you more or less aware of your Slovenianness since moving abroad?
I think I am, and I think moving abroad makes you being more aware of, qualities that you bring or that you have. And I don't think this only goes for Slovenians. I think it's for any nationality. I think we're really great people, like we're quite humble and, hardworking and everything. So, yeah, I think we become more proud of who we are and where we come from after we go abroad. And that's why, going back to the question, it's good to come back to Slovenia, feeling that, because I think like among Slovenians who live in Slovenia, this sort of got lost a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. If you were to define Slovenian characteristics, what would they be? You've already said the humble and your...
Yeah. I think, well, yes, the humble and hardworking, which are great qualities, and we have many people, many successful people out there who are on leading positions. And these qualities do get them quite far. But the other thing I would mention is we are very sympathetic. Like, I think in this westernized capitalist world, this sort of feel for others got lost. And I think we still have that. We always think about others and what will others think or how this will affect other people. We're not just thinking about ourselves. And I think this is a really good quality to have, to a certain sense, yeah.
You've come from the European Parliament in Brussels. What is the economic situation looking like from the European Union?
It's not peachy. It's not nice. I think it's really tough. I think the times are really tough, and I'm not very sure if the union is taking very effective steps, or maybe it's taking them too slowly, and I don't think we really have time. So, I'm a great supporter of the whole European Union idea, because I think it's really good for smaller states as well as for bigger ones. But we have to, I think, remind ourselves sometimes that the European Union was the only sort of idea who ensured and provided with peace for over 70 years now. And despite all the problems that we're facing now, the European Union did enable millions and millions of its citizens with a very high or higher level of well-being than they used to have before they entered.
What solutions do you think would be needed to bring back the financial stability in the EU?
I think the main problem in the European Union at the moment is, yes, it is financial crisis and everything, but it's the lack of trust that people have, for the European Union. It's people don't feel very European, and I think the reason for that lies in national governments. Whatever they do wrong, they usually shift the blame onto the European Union, which is not always the case. If there's corruption in a country, it's not European Union's fault. It's your own country's fault, or the government's fault. So I think we have to sort of narrow this gap between national governments and EU institutions and bring Europe back to people, so they would feel more European.
Okay. And what do you mean specifically by feeling European? What?
Feeling that you belong to something bigger than your own country.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I always give an example of Britain, they will always say, I'm British. And they feel proud when saying that. I know it's a country and everything, but I don't know, it's different when you look at Europe at the moment. People, when you say about European Union, they you get all sorts of facial expressions that are not very positive, and
so they're not feeling proud about the union as a whole.
No, not really.
Okay,
not really. Yeah.
All right. How do you see the economic situation in Slovenia?
I think it's similar to the whole European Union. It's not very nice at the moment in the term, like in regards to financial crisis and recession. I think what the today's system sort of learn how to manipulate people, and they know that the worst thing that can happen is after a crisis, people will, feel a little bit lost, and the worst thing that they can do is go out in the streets and demonstrate, which we saw not long ago. And what we lack is some citizens' confidence or some courage, to do something about it. And, sometimes I think that we got this country based on a set of very lucky circumstances. Maybe it was too easily achieved, or like independence and everything. It wasn't easy for those people who were fighting, I know, but just people sometimes, I think, forget. Maybe there wasn't enough struggle. Or maybe we're just too ignorant now and just take things for granted. I don't know what the problem is, but it's quite worrying.
Okay. What solutions would you propose for Slovenia?
Like I said, I think people need to have more courage. The political field, the political sphere in Slovenia, it's not very. You can only join if you think alike, and this results in we're looking at the same faces in politics for 20-30 years now.
Okay, so you think Parliament should be more accepting of new ideas and...
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly, and new people, because some people can bring new stuff and new people can bring new views. Mm-hmm. And that is a huge problem.
Okay. Your interests lie in diplomacy, international relations, global issues and international development. What global issues stand out for you at the moment that need immediate action?
We witnessed quite a few demonstrations all over Europe, if not the world, and the riots in London not that long ago. Mm-hmm. you know, things like this, it all comes back to family values. It all comes back to how today's youth is brought up, and this dissolution of moral values and this integration of, you know, social values. It's not good what's happening. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we hear every day on the TV, in the media, about, you know, promoting, yes, rich people, let's compete. Who's going to have more? Who's going to have a better car? Who's going to own more? Who's going to have a bigger house? And things like this. It's not healthy, you know, and it's like a house, you know. If your basis is not going to be stable, the whole house won't stand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where would you like to see yourself in 5 years' time, and what type of job would you like to be in, and where would you be living?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't have like a goal in that sense. So I want to, I don't know, be a politician in Slovenia. I don't have that kind of a wish. I do want to somehow help Slovenia out of this circle, and really messed up circle that it is in right now. But, you know, after finishing my degree in the UK, it was not the time to come back. I saw many people, many of my friends who were like, you know, 23, 24, finished their master's degrees, not just in Slovenia, but also outside. And they went back home and they couldn't find a job. You know, the political sphere in Slovenia is very closed. And if you are not thinking alike, you're not accepted and you're not welcome. And this is, I don't think it's good because, you know, apparently I read somewhere not long ago that in the last few decades about 20,000 Slovenians left the country. I think that's a lot, you know, and among these I'm sure there were really smart ones, you know, as well. And it's a shame you have to go out of the country to be successful. So at the moment, I don't think it's time for me to come back, but I hope one day it will be.
Katarina, we wish you success in Australia, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much.